everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are doing a currently reading update to chat about what I've been reading recently, what's been going on. We're in a slightly different location because I didn't feel like setting up my regular filming setup today. There's a bunch of clean laundry on the chair that I usually sit in to film, and I didn't really want to move it, so we're here. Also, before diving into the books, just wanted to do a little life update because I think in a previous video I had mentioned that I was going to be moving soon, and I actually am not going to be moving anymore just because of some life things that are going on. I don't really want to get into it right now, but it's all fine, but just in case anybody was wondering, whatever happened to that plot thread, that's what happened. I'm not moving anymore. I'm staying where I am, but it's all good. Okay, so the books. I somehow ended up reading a bunch of very weird books all at once. So we'll just talk about them. The last book that I finished, I actually finished an hour ago, and I really don't know how I feel about it because it was very strange. So I read The Memory Theater by Karen Tidbeck, which is a novella that takes place in this it starts out at least in this place called the Gardens, which kind of feels almost like a fairy world because there are these people who are the lords and ladies who never age. Time doesn't move forward. They just relive the same day over and over again, and they just party and play croquet and abuse their servants. So they have these people who they call servants. They're actually enslaved. They are children who have been stolen from the regular world and brought to the Gardens to serve the lords and ladies of the Gardens. And then these children, whenever they age out of being a child, when they reach it isn't a specific age, but whenever it is clear that they are no longer a child, they can't stay in the Gardens anymore, and so the lords and ladies hunt, kill, and eat their servants. So there is cannibalism a little bit in this book. The two main characters that we're following are Thistle and Dora. Thistle is one of these servants, and so he was kidnapped from his life in the regular world. His name was stolen from him, so Thistle isn't his real name, and there's a woman named Augusta who holds his name, and that's how she holds power over him. Dora is not one of the servants. She is kind of the child of one of the lords of the Gardens, but it's not exactly. It's a weird situation. But Thistle and Dora have grown up together. They're very close, and they protect each other. Something happens so that Augusta, the lady who holds Thistle's true name, is thrown out of the Gardens and expelled back into the regular world. And so the rest of the story becomes one following her as she is kind of thrust back into the regular world, and then also following Thistle and Dora as they are traveling between different worlds or realities, trying to find her because Thistle needs to get his true name from her so that he can be truly free. So that is the plot that we're following in this. However, there is a lot of other really weird stuff that happens in this book. It's a very short book. It's 200 pages, and yet so much weird stuff happens. And it is definitely very dark. There is, abuse and torture. But this book, I just, I don't know how to feel about it. I almost DNF'd it multiple times because there are a lot of things about it that just weren't working for me, and it especially almost lost me when it was at the point where they were kind of traveling between these different realities or different worlds, because that's just not a thing that I really enjoy. I'm not really a portal fantasy person. But then it also had some interesting ideas and really good moments, and that's what kept me reading it. I don't know, and it was a short book. I think it was under 200 pages, and yet it took me like 10 days to read this one book, which it should not have taken that long, but it just like, I don't know, somehow I was drawn to it and yet also wasn't. I don't know how to feel about it. So there were definitely parts of it that felt like 2 stars, parts that felt like 4 stars, but then splitting the difference and rating it 3 stars didn't like feel accurate to how I feel about it, because I don't even really know how I feel about it. So I just didn't rate it. Anyway, that's the last book that I finished. It was very strange, and I don't know. I don't know. Then as for what I am currently reading, I had started reading Seasonal Fears by Seanan McGuire, and then I had to put a pause on that because I needed to read something else. I needed to read Lachlan's by Robert Jackson Bennett, because my library loan was about to expire, which doesn't seem to make sense because I actually physically own the book, obviously, but I like to listen to this series as audiobooks. I really wanted to read this series or this book this month, and got the loan like from my library and then kept putting off actually reading it, and it's about to expire in a few days, so I need to read this. So that's why I kind of put a pause on Seasonal Fears, because I just felt like I would end up reading too many weird books all at once between A Memory Theater, Lachlan's, and Seasonal Fears, which all have like very different vibes to them and are weird in different ways, but they all have some element of like being a little mind bendy or reality bendy or something like that, and I just didn't want to read them all at the same time. So this is my current read. I'm listening to the audiobook for Lachlan's, and I'm hoping to finish this in the next couple of days. This is the 3rd book in the series, so can't explain too much about what it's about, but it is set in this world that has a kind of magic called scriving, which is kind of like magical coding. So there's like a combination of magic and technology in the way that this world runs, where scriving is able to kind of bend reality or convince inanimate objects that reality is different than it actually is. And so the series starts off in the 1st book with something that feels like it should be a pretty straightforward heist, and then the series ends up going the direction of like saving all of reality. So that's where we're at the moment, is saving reality. I am currently about 30% of the way into this book. I listened to like all 30% yesterday, pretty much. I'm trying to really dedicate time to just read this in chunks because I do really want to finish it just in the next couple of days. So this is what I'm currently reading, and then what I am reading next is I'm going to be going back to Seasonal Fears by Seanan McGuire. This is the companion sequel to Middle Game, which I loved Middle Game, and then I have heard some very lackluster reviews for Seasonal Fears, which I'm not totally surprised by. Like, I was very nervous that this was going to be like, that there was going to be a sequel, even if it's like a companion sequel. But I'm about 20% of the way into this, and so far I'm liking it, not loving it. I don't think that I don't foresee it being as good as Middle Game, but I definitely think at this moment that I will enjoy it. However, I'm only 20% of the way in, so it's very possible. Like, there's still a lot of book for me to like or dislike, so we'll see. So far, though, it feels like it is somehow both more and less confusing than Middle Game, because there was something about Middle Game that was like confusing in a fun way, and I feel like this is confusing in an unfun way. The plot of the story seems much more straightforward than Middle Game, which felt much more meandering in a way because they were trying to figure out what they needed to do. But I really enjoyed the way in which the story unfolded. In this, it's much more like you need to do this thing by this time or you die. So it's a much more clear, like, quest goal-oriented storyline, and yet the way that the world building is being done or the magic is being explained is confusing. And I don't think it needs to be. I feel like it's being explained in a way that feels like it is trying to have this kind of like whimsical, nonsensical feel to it, which I don't really enjoy it, and I don't feel like it's working super well. And that sounds very critical, and yet I also am enjoying this because I just kind of like Shauna Maguire's writing, and I don't know. We'll see. I'm only 20% in, but so once I finish Lachlan's, Seasonal Fears is where I'm going next. And I am hoping to finish both of these by the end of the month, which means I need to get going because I have like 5 days or 6 days left to read both of these. And they are not short books, so we shall see. Anyway, that is my reading update. I'd love to know, how's your reading going? What are you trying? Is there anything you're trying to finish before the end of the month? But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye.